Well, so how's your Easter?
Easter was good. We had
Do you go to church?
visited with some friends and stuff, and went to church and
Uh-huh.
yeah,
That's great. I went to church. There are so many people there. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's kind of
Long
surprised me.
service.
So, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum, ladies and gentlemen. Today is an April 22nd, and here's my dear friend Tom. Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. So nice to see you. Yes, Tom, this is a big week because we just have our Easter and then we have another big news after the Easter. Pope Francis passed away. So I probably would like to hear your thought about him later today. But before uh, asking you about Pope, your thought about him, because he's very controversial that I know.
Right.
Um, yeah, so, but I think something is bigger than that, which is our Supreme Court. We have 7-2 ruling to actually stop Trump administration to deport these illegal criminal immigrations. So I think this is huge. Like to her, what you thought about that? Are you surprised, or what do you think about that?
No, I think that the lawfare against Trump continues, but in this case,
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to be able to be sustained. He's the president. He's in charge of the country's foreign policy. And his policy advisors and then his own opinion are that people that are in this country illegally don't have a right to be here. Now, he's not in a position just uh, geographically, it's not possible to eliminate the millions of people that came here illegally
Mhm.
quickly. The process, and they have to have hearings, they have to actually be apprehended by ICE or Department of Homeland Security, and then
Mhm.
arrangements have to be made to send them out to whatever country they're being deported to.
Mhm.
But lately, the fact that they're trying to stop him from doing essentially his job
Mhm.
uh, is kind of mystifying to me that they would do that.
Mhm.
So I think the courts have yet to really show that he does have the right to do that. Now,
Right.
this latest case of the guy from, again, showing the media's bias as well. The guy from San Salvador, El Salvador,
Mhm.
um, that they picked up and deported. Suddenly, he's the model citizen of Maryland. He's a
Maryland guy.
doctor. He's a great guy. He's all of this. They leave out the part, came to the country illegally. He was deported twice by federal judges, immigration and other judges in Washington have already ruled he should be deported.
Mhm.
And then under normal deportation, the country that you're supposed to be deported to, one of two. One is the last country you came in from, which
Mhm.
for a lot of people might be Mexico or Puerto Rico, or not Puerto Rico, but Central American countries,
Mhm.
or the country of your citizenship.
Mhm.
And in his case, he's a citizen of El Salvador.
Yeah.
So he gets sent back there, and suddenly, oh, he's got to go somewhere else
Mhm.
because he told somebody years ago that he was threatened by rival gangs, and if he went back to El Salvador, he'd be in danger. Of course, that contradicts his statement that he's even a gang member. Oh
Mhm.
no, he's not a member of MS-13. Well, then who's going to kill him? Who's the danger come from in his case? So now you have Democratic senators
Right.
like the guy from Maryland who
Mhm.
run down there to try to get him. Now, interestingly, there's already deportation orders
Mhm.
from two earlier judges in the
Right.
United States.
Right.
So if El Salvador was to release him, send him back to the United States, he'd then be deported right back to El Salvador.
Mhm.
So, this whole thing by the Democrats to make this guy somehow the the poster child of people that shouldn't be deported from our country is unbelievable that the
Yeah,
Democrats want to make that an issue,
right.
and yet they do. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, yeah. I have lots of questions regarding this case, but before we go further, I'd like to introduce our audience about Tom. Tom worked in FBI for 30 years, and he worked as assistant director of FBI for 5 years, and he's retired now. And I have lots of questions regarding the legal issue for you. Okay, I have one first question. Why the Supreme Court have 7-2, meaning why 7 judges stand up against Trump's uh, action? Obviously,
Very rarely are you going to have a Supreme Court ruling be 9-0. It happens, but rare. And
right.
the interesting thing is, the old saying that reasonable men can disagree, or, even educated attorneys can disagree and have different opinions. Uh, that's why. So you have, in this case with him, 2 justices say, oh, he should be able to stay.
Mhm,
Um, so that the idea that these rulings are not unanimous doesn't mean they can't retry them and try over and bring it up the channels in our justice system. We'll see. But, yet again, the Democrats and the liberal left keep trying to obstruct Trump at every turn. So that's what you have now, yet again.
yeah, yeah. And for me, it's really surprising.
You
And
talk about wasting taxpayers' money.
mhm, go
A
ahead, go
senator
ahead.
from Maryland, Holland, goes to El Salvador at taxpayer expense,
Yeah.
flying down there. He's
Hmm.
trying to get the government there to release
Hmm.
Garcia to come back to the United States, where he'll be deported immediately again. So you have thousands of dollars
Hmm.
being wasted, and they don't care.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, you know,
So it's well for
meantime, they want to keep trying.
right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's a
They want to keep pushing these issues that have to go into the court system,
Mhm,
forcing the administration to go to the circuit courts, appeals court, and if the Supreme Court will accept it to the Supreme Court. Now,
mhm,
it's not an automatic um, when whether it's the government or the defendant
mhm,
tries to get their case before the Supreme Court.
mhm,
That's called a writ of certiorari. The
mhm.
Supreme Court does not have to accept it.
Right.
So the appeal court, the mid-level court in the circuit system, if they rule and the Supreme Court decides not to hear the case, then
Mhm.
their ruling stands. That's
Right,
the
right,
ultimate ruling.
right, right, right.
So that's the problem. But in this case, the Supreme Court is taking there's so many questions and so much pressure. They have been listening to both sides and trying to look at these cases and see if there's a way to issue a ruling that will stand and will be the law then, will be the ruling that stands as law.
Tom, I actually checked on the immigration law about the deportation parts. I'm not a law professional, but I read the law, and the law said that if someone, the illegal alien, has a deportation order, they need to leave this country. Very clear.
Right. Right.
So
And the
these
laws of deportation differ from having somebody extradited that
right,
way to
right.
another country. So in this, which could take years, but
Mhm,
deportation, a country has the right to decide who they want, who they
mhm.
don't want.
Yes,
So someone can be admitted into the country, whether they sneak in or
right,
even they get a legal
right,
hearing to come in.
right,
If they're going to be deported, the
right,
rule is the country that's deporting them has to send them back to the last country they came in from, which
right.
for thousands of people is Mexico.
Hmm.
So they could just deport them to Mexico. Or if they don't know what country or what their
Right,
identity is,
right, right,
deport them to whatever country they came in
right,
from.
right,
But if they know the country that they're a citizen of, then they can send them right back to that country. In
right.
this case, he's a citizen of El Salvador.
Adult, right.
So Yeah, so that would be the logical place. Now, what they're trying to say, the Democrats are trying to say that he was improperly deported there because somebody decided he shouldn't go back, that he would be in danger going back to his home country, so he should go somewhere else. Well, how is that documented? And how do we know he's really in danger? And the deportation rules still say you go back to your nationality country.
Hmm. Exactly, exactly. Because he has two deportation order already.
Yeah.
So what Trump administration did is follow the law and send him back to his country. So I just,
Yeah, but the Democrats don't like the law. They don't like it when it disagrees with them. They want to find judges that'll pick their side to win and all of that. So that's why they're pushing this thing. And it's just so stupid because even if the senator goes to El Salvador and the president there says, "Oh, okay, he's all ears. We're going to release him,"
mhm,
and they bring him back to the United States, he gets deported all over again. The
right,
deportation orders are already there. They already
right,
stand.
right.
So,
They just don't care. Are they stupid or we stupid to allow them to do that? They're what the Democrats do is illegal. They are doing illegal thing in front of the world, in front of American people. How dare they're doing that? They're insult every
well,
one
they
of
get
us.
away with it. We let them do it. We let them do it.
Yeah, it's so this on news it's made me so angry because
Well, I think it's going to make most voters angry in the long run. I think all of this stuff is going to backfire. And now you have other Democrats that want to go to El Salvador. It's like this
we
become the
have
number
four
one
already.
congressional tourist place to go
Right,
down there.
right.
So,
They have
and the
four.
interesting thing is that they have a very strict president who clamps down. He
Right.
created that very, very strong prison down there
He's good.
that almost that has really lowered the crime rate of El Salvador because of all the MS-13 people they've locked up in it.
Hmm.
And so he's not going to be intimidated by this. I think Trump is just going to sit back and say, okay, go ahead, Democrats, be stupid, keep
Hmm.
trying to persuade your voters
Hmm.
in a year and a half at the midterms or at the next presidential. Convince your voters that you're on the right side of this issue, which you're not.
Hmm. Well, so then next question is, do these people, illegal immigrants, have the same legal right as American citizens? Do they
Well,
have
in a way, yeah, in a way, when they're saying there has to be due process and all of that, in a way
so
they do.
so ironic thing is they come here illegally and then they come to our country and have the due processing. How ridiculous it is.
It's
And
very, very.
yeah, and also about the Supreme Court, I understand the left judges will always vote against Trump, against American people, the three lady judges. And why this we so-called conservative judges are stand with them. This is one thing. Second thing, there is an organization, the name is ACLU. They seems have a superpower. They actually overcome the appeal court and go directly to the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court pick up the case and just do the 7-2. So Alito is really, really disappointed on that.
Yeah.
So what
Right.
happened in Supreme Court? What happened?
Well, they
This,
allow these cases to go before them. They don't have to. They could say no,
yeah.
that the last decision made by the circuit court stands, and that's it. We're not going to hear anymore about it. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes to that at some point.
So Judge Alito called out to what looks to be a Supreme Court judicial cop in violations of his own procedures against Trump and the representative governments. So they are against the law to do that,
Right.
this, according to Alito. So I don't know. So what Trump can do on this situation?
Well, he can keep appealing and have the Justice Department try different angles to justify the appeal. That's what he can do.
Okay. So
But otherwise, it's he's limited.
I know, I know. I know. And also, yeah, I like to discuss with you because you work on the organization crime for a long time and you're very experienced on that. You're expert on that. So there is a law called RICO. Do you think that is there any chance for DOJ to deport these guys using RICO or organization crime
Well,
with this?
the RICO statute basically is if one of the state or federal laws that's listed in RICO that if you violate this law, it's a federal violation. If you keep basically a pattern of racketeering, so it's used mainly in organized crime cases because you could say, okay, here are these gangsters keep committing murder, rape, robbery,
Mhm,
whatever it might be, and
mhm,
if they do it a pattern of racketeering, in other words, they're making their living basically
mhm,
committing these crimes, then they can be prosecuted under RICO. Now, the RICO then carries extra penalties, extra damages against you,
right.
all of that. So it's a more severe law. It was passed in 1970 to go after La
Mhm,
Cosa Nostra, or the American Mafia,
mhm,
saying that these guys are committing these crimes, whether it's rape, robbery, extortion, murder,
mhm,
every day on a regular basis to sustain themselves, that they're professional criminals. And so
mhm,
the RICO statute was designed to bring multiple charges against these people who are professional criminals.
mhm, mhm,
So in the case of Garcia, that what organization is he a part of? MS-13, obviously, but is he committing multiple crimes, whether when he was in the United States or what, on behalf of the organization? So he's murdering. When they want him to kill somebody, he does it. When they want him to commit robberies to make money, he does it. So, so there are guidelines under RICO. You can't just automatically bring a RICO case.
sure.
So, but if you have multiple violations
Mhm,
benefiting the organization,
mhm,
benefiting the overall, whether it's the American Mafia or
mhm,
whether it's another organized crime group, a triad,
mhm,
you name it, organized crime from another country, Tren de Aragua here, which is the Venezuelan organized crime group. If what you're doing, the crime you're committing, is to benefit the group
mhm,
rather than just you personally,
mhm.
then that would qualify for prosecution under RICO.
So how can we understand how we prove that it's benefit to the group? For example, some gay member kill one or two people. So
Well, if you
how?
find out, well, you're going to need to find out who issued the orders for that person to be killed. Do they have it based on informant information or wiretap information or something to
Mhm,
show that the bosses or the group itself has wanted that particular crime committed to benefit the group? So even if it's kill an informant, kill a witness, it benefits the group. And so
oh,
that's what you're trying to prove, that what they did was on behalf of the organization, not
okay,
necessarily the person's own personal situation.
I see. So in under the current immigration law, if someone proved to be a member of a gang, and so it's automatically should be deport, right?
Well, that's how the law, yeah, that's how
Right,
the law is against these groups. So if you're a
right,
member of MS-13, or,
right,
they show that you have that membership, which is kind of hard for the person to deny when they've got the tattoos on their
right,
fingers,
right,
chest, and they're wearing the paraphernalia,
right.
um, doing all the activities they do that benefit that organization.
Mhm.
Then yeah, then they can bring that as an excuse to go ahead and lock the person up and get rid of them, deport
So,
them.
yeah, so the Supreme Court ruling is even though you prove this guy is a gang member, he still has the right to do the due process.
Well, the
And
due process means that they need to come up with actually a procedure to prove it, present the evidence, present the material that shows that he is.
so the
So
tattoo on the body, is that enough evidence?
that's a pretty good clue. That's pretty good
Right?
evidence
Right?
that he's in support of that organization. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I saw some Democrats or congressmen just said, oh, this is just tattoo. He just liked the tattoo. Then he put the tattoo on his finger, on his hand. And not the tattoo cannot be a proof of he is actually the member of the gang.
Yeah, back when I ran the FBI's organized crime program, we
Right.
used tattoos to prove, especially, let's say, Japanese or organized crime. You
Right.
had the Boryokudan, and
Mm-hmm.
then their nickname was Yakuza, which most people went by. But it
Mm-hmm.
was basically a triad out of China, and the people there, members would get tattoos all over their body.
Mm-hmm.
Then what would happen to many of them would get blood poisoning and die from the tattoos.
Oh, really?
So they modified using different ink and other things. But yeah, you
Oh.
would have two tattoos of these guys, ink from base of their head all the way down to their toes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, it would be fatal to have that much poisonous ink in your system.
Right. Right. So tattoo should be a very good proof
It's a
of their
clue.
status.
Well, it's a clue, yeah.
Yeah. And what else? You can prove that someone is a gang member rather than tattoo.
Well, if you have informant information that shows they're taking orders from senior gang members, or the
Okay.
wiretaps show that they're getting calls and orders to commit crimes on behalf of the older members.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, there's other ways to prove organized crime membership or membership of any conspiracy. So, if you're dealing with the people that run the organization, that's a clue.
Right. Right. So the Maryland guy is approved a gang member. So for this is if this is the only reason, I think it's good enough
It's
for.
good enough, yeah. Normally that's enough by itself. Then
Mhm,
on top of that, you've got he beat his wife and
mhm,
he's done all these other activities which are
mhm,
also bad.
mhm.
So yeah, the government has plenty of reason to get rid of him.
Right. So it seems
And
like
then
the.
liberal Democrats
Mhm.
have plenty of reason to obstruct the government no matter what. Make that this is their cause to help these people stay in the United States. Let's fly down there and bring them back. How stupid can you be?
Tom, I just have no word to say for the situation like that, for the behave like that. They are congressmen and women. They should work for American people and they work for the illegal immigrants with the
Well, the
criminal.
problem is that, really, you take the Democratic Party right now and their voting base, how many of them are just stupid or, immoral themselves? So I think that's where the problem comes in here is that they're backing up like this senator. When he comes up for reelection, that should be a no-brainer. He should be out. The voters say, we don't want this guy
Right,
wasting our money, our time,
right.
and going to bring somebody back that's a danger to our citizens, including his
Exactly,
own wife and kids.
exactly, exactly.
So, how they can find a way to support that and justify it, the only way that can be really stopped, unless that member of Congress commits a direct crime that they can prove,
Hmm.
but don't vote for him anymore. Vote him out.
Hmm.
And that's where the problem comes in. So you have a state like Maryland now, which has turned into a pretty blue state. And so they're saying basically, yeah, this senator, he's doing what we want him to do. Go after this gang member and bring him back.
Well, this is so if Maryland people still vote for this guy, this senator, I think this is a suicide for themselves.
If they do.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
Yeah, if they do.
Well, so yeah, we are just people are angry. Normal people are angry about what the Supreme Court make the decision 7-2, and also for these congressmen and women, this Democrats are bring this guy back to United States. It's against the law. So you have your congressmen and women against the law. So I don't
Well,
know.
so far, the first act of against the law would be getting him out of the prison. You know, he's been locked up under El Salvador law.
Right,
Their
right,
president and senior officials have ruled that he belongs in this jail, and we want to keep him in this jail.
right,
So now
right.
these congressmen and senators go down there.
Mhm,
What's the excuse, you know, to tell El Salvador, let him out? Are
mhm,
they going to break him out of their jail? Are we going to commit illegal acts? Our citizens, like our senator,
right.
commit crimes in El Salvador to obstruct their justice
Mhm,
and bring a criminal back that's not supposed to come back.
mhm. Right, right, right. So, so people's focus right now is on the DOJ and FBI, and people keep asking, when can we see the arrest of these people, this congressmen and women, not these three, but we have so many Congress people, this politics, they are doing bad things. There's no arrest, no accountable. Oh, so
Well, the
far,
problem is that
anything.
because the FBI has been stymied for several years during the Biden administration and
Right,
even during, you know, prior to that,
right.
you have you know, to gather the evidence, to get the witness statements, to get the testimony takes
Mhm,
time, then to
mhm,
present it to the grand jury. So
mhm.
they don't have the ability to take.
Hey, Tom. Oh, I think it's disconnected. Hey,
Grand jury, get the grand jury to return indictments against the person, and then begin the prosecution that way. Get them, lock them up, and go ahead and prosecute. I
mhm,
can tell you from, you know, I was in charge of the FBI's organized crime program worldwide for 5 years during my career. These cases take time. They're very difficult. You
mhm,
can't just snatch somebody off, even though maybe during Biden they did that.
mhm,
But during normal judicial process, you need to gather the evidence fairly, properly, and
mhm,
then present it to a grand jury. So
mhm,
you've got all these years that evidence wasn't being gathered properly.
mhm,
You had this huge gap at the beginning of these cases
mhm,
with the FBI not doing what it was supposed to be doing.
mhm, mhm. So, yeah, this is my next question. You already actually answered, and then I remember last time you tell us the same thing that it takes time to gather the information, evidence, and to put together a good case that can win on the court. And
Right.
so, yeah, I just wonder, because right now you see they try to do the lawfare to block Trump's agenda very badly, very badly. So FBI and DOJ should play an extremely important role. And so far, we still not see the big actions, but you already explained
Well,
what.
you wouldn't see that. That what's going on behind the scenes or
Right.
in front of a grand jury, that you're not going to see that. Grand jury proceedings are supposed to be secret anyway.
Okay.
So you're not gonna see the cases that are being built and presented
Mhm.
before grand juries. You're just not gonna see it until they finally make the arrests and do the prosecution.
Right. So, what's your prediction of how long it might take for the first big case to go public?
I
When
think
we
it could still be another year or two. Now, the
really,
problem is going to be because it might take that long, you may have voters become so impatient and disgusted that they could vote Republicans out of office. You know,
yeah,
they could say, you know, we elected you
right,
in 2024 to
uh-huh,
do something about all of this, to
right,
bring these cases, to prosecute bad guys.
right,
And there's criticism already of Attorney General Bondi
right,
doing all these press appearances on Fox News and all that. And people are saying, wait, we don't want to hear any more of that. We
right,
want results. We want arrests. We want prosecutions. And
right.
so the fact that they're not doing as much as you would like to see is not good because these members of Congress may get voted out next year, 2026.
2026, you mean what, which part?
Every member of Congress has to run every 2 years, every one.
Right,
So
right,
all of the House of Representatives,
right,
2025, that's fine. But
right,
this time next year, they're going to be up for reelection,
right,
2026. So
right.
if they don't have results by then showing something, progress, then they might get voted out. They have a very slim majority right now.
Exactly. Exactly. This is why people are just right now you can feel that they're lost of the patient. They're waiting because people are thinking about the midterm for next year. It's
Well,
pretty
problem
soon.
there is that most people, if you're going to bring a lawfare case like they did
Hmm.
against Trump many times,
Hmm.
then they don't need to take time and do it right. And they didn't do it right.
Hmm.
But if you're going to have a case that's going to withstand scrutiny and appeal and possibly go to the Supreme Court,
Hmm.
they've got to do it by the numbers. They have to follow the correct procedures. So witness statements or wiretap evidence, that takes a long time to develop that and then later present it to a grand jury. I've run thousands of cases like that in my career. They're
Right.
not quickly done.
Wow. So seems like for next year, for the midterm, it's going to be a big challenge for
It's a big
Republic.
race. It's a race. Can they
Yeah.
get something to show for the effort before next year's election, before the midterm?
Right, right. And also, the things about the election, election equity. Um, so I don't think they have enough time to do that or check on the 2020 election. For the Democrats, they still the election, but the election integrity will have no time left for
You're right.
DOJ.
No, you're right. There's only so many investigators that can gather so much information and evidence and how
Mhm.
long it takes to do it and then present it. It's one thing to find all this oh, they stole the election. All right, prove it. And then submit that proof in court. Get
Mhm.
people charged with doing that. Get the prosecutions underway, and we'll see.
Yeah,
And right now, I think Pam Bondi is getting a lot of criticism because
right.
it's taking just because of this. It takes so long,
Mhm.
and the people are impatient and fed up. They want it done.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then, what they want is they want to see less of her on television doing interviews
right.
and more of her people bringing these cases in court.
Right. Exactly. And I remember you mentioned that she is facing a huge challenge because there are so many left lawyers works in DOJ,
Right.
meaning she it's really a challenge for her to find a right person to process the cases.
Well, the challenge is to get rid of the bad people, but there's
Right.
so many of them, and then you have to have proof of that. You have to investigate how you know it and what
Mhm.
shows that they're not good.
Right.
So that's part of the problem with that. So
Right.
there's a lot of work to be done to clean up DOJ and clean up the FBI,
Right.
and hopefully they're doing it.
Right. Right. And also, Tom, I'm just thinking if the Republic lost one of the House, the Senate, or lost the Congress, what could happen? And next year, I'm talking about midterm.
All of this would come to a halt. You have to have, first of all, both the House and the Senate, you have to have the majority of your,
Sorry, what do you say? It's a little
let's say the
disconnect.
House of Representatives. Your party,
Mhm.
Republicans have to maintain the majority of members.
Sure.
If they do, then they get to pick who's the, head of the House, like
Right.
Nancy Pelosi for years.
Mhm.
Right now, uh, they get to pick that. The person that's the Speaker of the House, once they've picked them, gets to decide. Every committee in the House is under the direction of that party. So every committee chairman is put in that position by the secretary, by the head of the House, Speaker of the House. And so when they're put in that position, the committees decide what cases they're going to hear, what subpoenas they're going to issue. That gets all approved by Speaker of the House. So if the Democrats were to take over and have the majority of the members be Democrat, everything changes.
Mhm.
Then they vote out, Speaker of the House becomes a Democrat. Then each committee head is picked by a Democrat. All the members of the committees are picked by that person.
Mhm.
So that makes a huge difference. Then the Speaker of the House also approves what hearings the House committees can hold. So all of that's decided by the Speaker and the members, of that party, which trips they get to take. So congressmen going to different parts of the world, normally that would have to be approved by the Speaker of the House. So now in the case of, the Maryland senator going, to El Salvador, I don't know how that got passed through. And maybe Johnson just decided, all right, let him go, thinking that in the long run, it'll embarrass the Democratic Party and that senator more by letting him go than if he didn't go.
Mhm. Right.
So, so there's a lot of things if you look at the tenure of Nancy Pelosi, all of the hearings that were never conducted, that were never approved,
Right.
the committees wanting to look at various aspects of
Mhm.
law and procedure and all that,
Mhm.
Pelosi killed it.
Mhm.
If it didn't benefit the Democratic Party, she didn't allow it.
Mhm.
So now we've got Speaker Johnson. Well, we'll see what gets allowed, and we'll see how long he can stay as
Mhm.
the Speaker.
Mhm.
Now, the
Right.
Senate, same thing. The Senate has just become under the Republicans. So
Mhm.
therefore, Schumer is no longer the head of the Senate. He's just the head of the Democratic Party in
Mhm.
the Senate.
Mhm.
And so that has a big effect. Who's on what committee? Because every member wants to be on the key committees and the committee heads. So the chairman of every committee then gets picked by
Mhm.
the leader.
Right.
So those are huge, huge
Difference.
stakes,
Right.
which, in 2 years, every 2 years, a third of the Senate gets
Mhm.
reelected.
Mhm.
But every member of the House comes up for reelection.
Right.
So the House of Representatives, the Republicans have a slim lead.
Mhm.
And it's so slim, in fact, that's why, Stefanik, a congressman from New York, Trump had nominated her to be ambassador to the UN.
Mhm.
And then now they're looking at it going, we don't have that many votes to be in charge of the House.
Right.
So she ended up quitting that and going back to,
Yeah.
her regular staying in the House as a member.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's a lot at stake. And the fact of it is that when we talk about these prosecutions of bad guys,
Mhm.
how long they take, and all the effort that goes into them, and then, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
The House comes up for reelection next year.
Mhm.
So that means that the majority of the House, the couple of seats majority that they hold, that may not last after the next election. That may be gone.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So this is huge. So I'm just thinking if we lost House or if we lost Senate, Trump's agenda might just stop because they're gonna do everything and they have
Yeah,
much more power than right now.
absolutely.
So yeah, so they can right now they are doing the political plan of these judges, the left judges, it's just slow down the deportation as much as possible. So this is one thing they want to do. The second thing is maybe force Trump to take extreme measures. And if he take the extreme measure, to push his agenda, maybe he could have lost some voters because it's maybe too extreme.
Could be.
Something he can do it,
Could be. Right.
right? Yeah, he just don't follow the order from Supreme Court. And then people would say, oh, you are the guy that against the law, against the Constitution. You're a dictator. And I believe that narrative will um, decline some of the numbers of the supporters. So I don't know. It seems like even though Trump is back to White House, the force against him, against American people, is still huge, if not bigger.
Well, we'll see how they frame it for the next elections and stuff. So you have these issues that it's not enough of a lead in the House or it's not enough of a lead in the Senate to really give Trump the cushion to do the type of things that he needs to do.
Right.
However, you could have the situation where the voters, 85 million voters or whoever voted Republican, voted for Trump,
Hmm.
they just, it could get worse for the Democrats. They may see all of this lawfare and everything else that the Democrats are doing,
That's
and it
possible.
could make them have even more power next elections. Have
Right.
more constituents stand up and say, no, we want these policies done.
Right. Right. Yeah. Hopefully, it's go to that direction, which will give Trump administration more power for the next two 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. And then yeah, about Pope Francis. He passed away yesterday and he's very controversial. He has a controversial life. So as a Roman Catholic, what do you feel about him?
Well, the issue with the Pope is that he's very socialist, very pro-socialism, and
Right.
therefore very much against the United States deportation and issues like that, the U.S. trying to enforce these laws,
Mm-hmm.
and he fought against that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Christians, especially Catholics,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the United States, said he shouldn't obstruct everything the U.S. is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now you had J.D. Vance visit him on Easter,
I know.
and and basically he was giving Vance the same hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Stop deporting all these people. Stop doing these policies. Feed the poor. Feed the world.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Jesus. Take care of everybody and don't do all these bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had leaders of the United States, whether it's the president or vice president and others, basically saying to the Catholic Church, look, this is going too far. The
Mm-hmm.
lawlessness, the liberalism, all of that
Mm-hmm.
is too much,
Mm-hmm.
and back off. And you
Mm-hmm.
have the popes basically, for centuries come from Europe, come from Italy, come
Right.
from, strong political backing there by
Mm-hmm.
the priests and the bishops in those countries. Now
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you have this guy, the first non-European in 500 years or so elected to be pope,
Mm-hmm.
and then put in these kind of policies, be so antagonistic, let's say, toward countries like the United States.
Right. Right. So yeah, I just wonder, like, he's pro socialism and sometime communism. Is this against Bible?
Is it
As
what? I'm sorry.
against the Bible, the spirit of Bible? I don't think the Bible is for socialism, communism,
No,
right?
but they argue that, many that want to take that side argue that when Jesus was alive and was preaching, everybody should contribute money to them and feed them and all, basically
Hmm.
advocating socialist policies
Hmm.
at that time, 2000 years ago. So that's part of what many Christians that backed up this Pope were saying, that
Hmm.
what he's doing is very Christ-like in,
Hmm.
in feeding the poor and doing all of these things. Well, many popes have done that over the centuries,
Right.
but it just depends. And you've always had the Catholic Church having
Hmm.
two get caught up in the
I'm
politics
sorry,
of the
Tom.
time.
I didn't hear you. You said you always get Catholic Church get two, and then I cannot hear you after that.
Well, you've always had the Catholic Church being involved in issues of the time
Mm-hmm.
that might, contradict what governments want to do. So you've
Right.
had much evidence come up that the Catholic Church supported the Nazi Party indirectly or behind the scenes during World War II, supported
Mm-hmm.
Hitler. Catholic Church was involved in helping many Nazis escape justice in
Oh,
Europe and flee to Argentina and other South American countries.
oh,
So, so there's a lot of there,
uh,
many investigations from that time
sure.
uh, have uncovered that various bishops, basic church in Italy, were
Mhm.
forging passports on behalf of Nazi leaders so they could escape.
Wow. This is big. So what's the reason for them to do that? I understand that they said, oh, you should live like a Jesus and then feed the poor, right? But why help the Nazis?
Because the Nazis had acquired so much wealth by stealing works of art and all of this,
Mm-hmm.
and the Nazis had acquired tremendous political support in South America. And you had the right-wing government of Argentina under Juan Perón
Uh-huh.
and Evita Perón
Right.
basically was a military right-wing government
Right.
supporting other military right-wing governments like the Nazi Party in Europe. So that's why they facilitated, and the Catholic Church apparently helped to facilitate many of the documents that enabled many of the Nazis, especially the leaders that they were looking for, to escape, to go to South America.
Wow. So people are saying that Hitler actually did not die at Berlin at
Well,
1940.
that's among the rumors that Hitler was able to go to
Right.
Spain, catch a submarine, take the
Uh-huh.
submarine to Argentina. But there
Right.
were numerous uh, German pro-Nazi communities in Argentina, in Paraguay, throughout the
Mm-hmm.
southern part of South America
Mm-hmm.
that would have supported Hitler if he had gotten there, if he was able to have done that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot of witnesses, Hitler's secretary and many others, that were telling investigators, no, he did shoot himself in the
Sure.
bunker
Right.
and
Right.
did shoot his wife in the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have others that say, he had the escape plans in place and was able to fly out of Berlin,
Mm-hmm.
fly to either Spain or Italy, and
Mm-hmm.
board a German submarine to go to Argentina, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Well, so just no proof. It's just a rumor. People just saying that. Both of them have no proof, right?
Well, the problem is, they don't really have the proof that, supposedly you have witnesses that were aware that Hitler, they hear the gunshot, they
Mm-hmm.
run into his apartment, he's killed his wife and himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the body is taken out in the courtyard. Now the Soviets are closing in. They can hear the gunshots of the enemy closing in on the bunker area.
Mm-hmm.
And so they dig a hole,
Mm-hmm.
throw both bodies in the hole, pour gasoline, light it on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Then later, day or two later, the Soviet army comes in, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where the claim comes in, where they said, well, they dug up the bodies and sent them back to the Soviet Union. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where some of the discrepancy. Did they actually have the bodies? Did
Right.
they go to the Soviet Union? Was
Right.
there truth? They had Hitler's dental records and that kind of stuff, but
Right.
did they have the proof to really show that he was captured
Right. Right. Wow.
and killed?
This is a very interesting topic, though. Yeah, but
Very.
so Francis is really pro socialism, pro communist, and against America. Do you understand why he's against America so much, against the Trump, against Make America Great Again? As a pop, as so, Francis, why he just yeah, he's just doing that. Why he hate us? He's
You're talking
supposed to
about the Pope? Why the
yeah.
Pope?
Yeah,
Yeah.
why people just anti-America so much? He's supposed to love everybody, right? American.
The Pope was very pro-left wing
Uh-huh.
and liberalism and basically socialism. And
Mhm.
he felt that the US is too far to the right, too far of a right wing culture,
Mhm.
including Trump. And
Mhm.
so that's why. So that he was anti-American policies, let's say, or American foreign policy.
Mhm. So he's actually not really a loving people like a pop should do. Love everybody. He love his agenda more than he like people,
Right.
right? So
Right.
yeah, that's sad. But we don't know who gonna be next Pope yet. We don't know.
No, and, from what I've been reading, there are people in the Catholic Church that want to restore more of the conservatism back to the Catholic Church. So it's not so far to the left, not
Okay.
so liberal,
Uh-huh.
all of that. And
That,
so they would like a more conservative based pope to get elected and return, you know, make the Vatican great again, put it that way.
oh, we'll see, but that's good news, right? If it's
Well, if
become.
it happens, we're going to see, the elections, probably that'll start in a couple of weeks, the actual,
Mhm.
the Vatican having the meetings.
Right.
When the cardinals lock themselves in the Sistine Chapel, it's
Mhm.
called a conclave. Well, that's a combination of Latin words. Con means with,
Mhm.
and clave, the part of that is lave, which is key. And so they have special key that locks that door. So
Oh.
conclave means you're locked in a meeting. Now, in con, well, the bosses of the company are going to have a meeting together. It's a
Mhm.
conclave. That's
Mhm.
basically what it means. It's a meeting of certain members
Mhm.
that belong to an elite group
Mhm.
that then have a meeting that the rest of the public is not going to be part of the meeting. So that's what the conclave of Catholic cardinals is, that they go into the Sistine Chapel where the ceiling had been painted by Michelangelo, and
Mhm.
it's beautiful when you see it. But they'll go in that room and they'll be locked in, and then they'll have the votes. And the votes, they put who they vote for on cards and they get collected. And then they have a fire, like a little fireplace.
Mhm.
And if there's no pope elected, then they put oil on the ballots, put
Mhm.
them in the fire, and then black smoke comes up. And so the
Oh,
people out in the courtyard could
they
say, "Oh,
could.
there's no unsuccessful." And
Okay.
then when they have a successful vote, they put the
Mhm.
white papers in there, and the smoke is white. And
Ah,
then they say,
we have.
"Habemus pacem," we have a pope.
Ah.
And that's how that. So the election is finalized. They know they have a pope.
Mhm.
And all these proceedings are supposed to be secret, and you're not supposed to know who votes for who and all that. But
Mhm.
then the person that's elected goes up into the chambers above the courtyard, and the people in there dress the Pope, put on his gowns and his robes and all of the jewelry he's going to wear,
Mhm.
the hat, everything. And then the public will learn who the Pope is when that person walks out onto the balcony
Ah,
of of the cathedral overlooking the courtyard.
right.
Now that courtyard is enormous.
Mhm.
They can hold 1 million people.
Mhm.
So the faithful, as they're calling all the parishioners, they will be in that courtyard. And then when the person walks out, the new pope, that's when they'll know who's the new pope.
Wow.
Now, there's
So
a very, very good movie that was made 20 or 30 years ago called Shoes of the Fisherman. Strongly recommend
sure.
watching that movie. The star of the movie was Anthony Quinn,
Uh-huh.
and he plays, a fictitious pope, but he plays a pope. And what happens in the troubled times of the 60s and 70s, and the push for the Catholic Church to share its wealth with the poor, and all of this. But anyway, it's an outstanding movie. In that, American reporter is there. The actor's name is David Jansen,
Mhm.
but he's playing a reporter, and then he's describing to the people he's reporting to all of the procedures, how it works, how the election is conducted, all of that. So it explains to everybody, here's what happens now. And
Okay.
that's kind of like in that movie, you would have that now. What is going on now in
Mm-hmm.
the Vatican? The cardinals are all flying to Rome, and they're all going to get ready to vote probably in a week or two, but
I.
they'll cast those votes in
Mm-hmm.
the Sistine Chapel,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ballots at the end of each round, the
Mm-hmm.
ballots get burned,
Mm-hmm.
and the smoke tells
And
the people it's either white smoke, we have a pope, or it's black smoke, we have to have another ballot. And I think they vote twice a day until they get a pope.
twice a day. How
I
many
believe it.
people are voting in there? 20,
Well, all of the cardinals. So I think it's
about 100.
50 or 75 somewhere.
Okay.
Every cardinal from around the world flies
Okay.
in to
I see.
vote.
Wow, that might be very excited to
Yeah,
see.
it's a great movie to see what's happening. Now,
Mhm.
what kind of reporting we'll have here in mainstream media, and who
Mhm.
knows?
Right.
I don't know.
We'll see that in reality within 2, 3 weeks, right?
I think that the first votes are in a couple of weeks.
Okay, great. We'll see who's become a new pop and see if this guy is not that far left, which will lead the church to a right direction, or at least not too left direction. We'll see
We'll
that.
see.
Yeah,
We
all
will
right.
see.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Tom, to give me some faith about even though they have a huge, a big lawfare against Trump and his administration, and also, this is against American people because we vote Trump. We like him to do his job, and they just block the agenda. But the good thing is, the midterm will come, and maybe more people will see what Democrats are doing to destroy this country. And
I
then,
think that's true. And the other thing to keep in mind is the Democrats to this day don't really have a leader. So you see that many Democrats are saying that they
it's frozen again, and it will come back. Hey, Tom. Hey, Tom. Tom.
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm still
you're
here.
frozen. I'm sorry. You said this is a good, and then you're frozen.
Yeah, I was saying that the Democrats don't have a leader. So
Yeah, right.
some are saying that the closest leader they have is Bernie Sanders, and he's trying to pass the torch to Ocasio-Cortez.
Mhm.
And and many people think you've got to be kidding. Between the two of them, they're no good,
Mhm.
extremely left.
Mhm.
And then when you have Democrats like this Holland from Maryland going to El Salvador to basically make a saint out of a MS-13 gang member who beat his wife in
Mhm.
Maryland,
Mhm.
then you have that, the Democrats have just lost their way, and they
Right,
don't really have a leader that most people would back up.
right,
So,
right. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very
yeah,
good point. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we need the faith when we see bad things happen. And
yeah,
thank you
I
so
agree.
much for giving us that. And also we again we need to be patient on for the DOJ and FBI, but because it's really takes time to put together a good strong case.
Imagine, a good example of justice is you're watching a Western movie, cowboys and all that,
Sure.
and they pick up somebody for cattle rustling,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And what do? Do they have a court that lasts weeks and months, or a grand jury or any of that? No. Put a rope around his neck and hang him high.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
And yeah, so that's justice.
Mhm.
That's due process. He
Mhm.
did it, hang him up.
Yeah, right. Very simple and very
So
direct.
that's what the Biden administration has been doing to Republicans
Mhm.
for the 4 years they were in charge,
Yeah.
is basically uh, like Western justice, hang them high,
Mhm.
figure
Mhm.
it out later. They use that lawfare. Trump, his supporters, you look at all the people in his cabinet, school board, meetings with parents, all down the line. They used that lack of justice as often as they could.
Right.
Now, in the long run, the net result is Trump is now the president. The people finally saw it and got rid of it. But the people can turn impatient. The people can say, wait a minute, So since it's Easter weekend, if you remember the movie Ten Commandments,
Mm-hmm.
the Moses is leading the people out of Egypt into the desert. They stop at Mount Sinai, and Moses goes up the mountain to get the Ten Commandments from God, the
Mm-hmm.
tablets with, the new rules. While he's gone, he doesn't come down the hill right away. It's
Yeah,
taking
right.
time for God to give
Mm-hmm.
him what he needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the people down below, they start creating a golden, they do all sin and terrible and they're rioting and everything because they lost patience,
Mm-hmm.
even with Moses, who had rescued them out of Egypt, toward the promised land. So that's kind of an example is that people become very impatient, very fast, no
Mm-hmm.
matter who they're supporting.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
in the movie, you remember Moses throws the tablets down. They had got somebody to make a golden calf that they could worship,
mm-hmm.
and blasphemy against the Lord. So Moses throws down the tablets and
Mm-hmm.
blows that up, and the people go crazy. But that's just another example of how many times the public or the jury or whoever might become impatient in justice.
Mm-hmm. That's a good story. Thank you for sharing that story.
Two good movies, Ten Commandments,
Yeah. Yeah.
Shoes of the Fisherman.
Yeah. Oh, I'll take time to watch that. I think I watched the 10th Amendment before. Um, my only concern is when Moses bring the Jewish people back out of Egypt, they are not an enemy want to destroy Moses. Only the people confusing people. But right now in America, we have Democrats, far left Democrats, and they are equal to Communist Party. So if you have a Communist Party in your government and want to do everything to destroy you, do we have enough time to save ourselves? This is my concern.
I hope so.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. Maybe we have some good news next week, but thank you so much. You're absolutely right. We need to be patient and we need to be to stand strong to support
Right.
Trump and his administration. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. And I really, really appreciate it. And then I'll translate into Chinese as soon as possible. And then I will see you next week.
Okay. See you next week. I'll be in Turkey next week, so
Oh, okay.
hopefully I've got a good enough Wi-Fi connection that I can.
Yeah, that's fine. If you cannot do that, we can arrange another time. Enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Take
yeah.